I want to talk a little bit about how the life of a designer is actually different from the lives of all the other normal people, because it is. And, well, there's something that we call travel, yeah? And the first thing that comes in our heads is actually going from country to country, and yeah, that is travel, of course. And when we do that, well, I spent so much money, pretty much, yeah, 90% of all the money that I made on staying in good hotels. And I was doing that on purpose because there is no better way to experience well, a space, a place, than to live there for a few days. And it's quite shocking, actually, how some of the most famous hotels in the world, with the most done by the most famous designers, how uncomfortable they are, though that world should know, how ridiculous they are, unusable. And that is that moment when you think that, like, all this doesn't make any sense because I can't enjoy it. And so well, I did a lot of those experiments from my travels, and I also at some point started thinking, well, why can't I change things? I would come to a room and I would rearrange the furniture and move things around and buy my own flowers instead of something ugly that they would put in the room. And this kind of travel is important, but it's not always that we can afford it or have time for that. But designer's life is travel every single second. So what I already mentioned, this walking through your bedroom to the bathroom is part of the travel. And it has to be amazing. And it has to be, well, if not exciting every time, but it has to be something you like doing. So I suggest that today, when you go back to your houses, rooms, and so on, do that consciously. Basically, the life of designer is a very conscious life, which also makes it much longer, because a lot of people miss those moments, which we don't. And doing a simple thing with, for example, well, when you walk into your room, just going around the room and touching the wall with your eyes closed. Just feel how your room actually feels. And if it gets monotonous, if you get bored, that means that, well, you should put something on the wall somewhere. Or you should use some other material. Or you should, I don't know, you're missing a curtain or something, or a flower. And these kind of experiences are really important. When you go out, bars, restaurants, see that as a travel. It's not just going somewhere out to see friends and eat food. No, that's not what designers do. We travel every day from each space we live to each next space that we go to. And even if that travel is not always beautiful, we always learn something. There is always something to discover. In every restaurant where we come, there are always details that we'll find interesting. There are always materials, shadows, reflections, the way the light falls. There is always something to find. And that makes, well, that's the best education, really. And that also makes our life fulfilled and meaningful. And instead of having a boring dinner with people we don't like, we can learn things about the place, and we can, even if the place is not very nice, it's still important for us to think, how do we feel in it? And the architecture, the architectural part of design, this flow of life that we are constantly moving through in every space, in our house or wherever we are, this flow of life, we have to consciously react to it. We have to feel it. We have to know what's good and what's bad. And that is, yeah, the only way we can learn is just to do it ourselves. Yeah, the kitchen, for example. The kitchen in every house can be an amazing travel experience. For all the smells and the spices and the pots and the pans and the plates that are brought from different places. A travel in the fridge. that can also, not can, it's very important. Every time we open the fridge, what do we see there? And what kind of experience, what kind of travel experience is that? So, yeah, sometimes it's not a very happy one. And sometimes you open the fridge and you go like, oh my God, this is a world of its own. And it's a world of abundance, or a world of dried piece of cheese. Wardrobes. When we open the wardrobe, that is a travel experience. It tells us so much about who we are and what we're planning to be and where we're planning to go, because everything is there prepared for our travel throughout the world. I mean, the world that we live in. And time travel is also very important. We, as people who are creating those worlds, so for us, imagination, associative thinking is absolutely essential. And train that imagination, it's our daily duty. So let's say we come to whatever room. If it's good or bad, doesn't matter. Just imagine how it will look in 10 years from now. Imagine how it looked 10 years ago. Imagine what will happen to this room when this whole world is not going to exist. Will something be left? And that is a question of legacy and impact, but that is a bigger story. But yeah, this time travel is very, very important. And another thing which we will do a small exercise about, it's so every room, every house, every space that's created by designers, or not by people, is a portrait of the person who made it or who lives there. So for us to see this person, because a designer would make those projects for whatever clients, and we need to think backwards. We need to imagine who is that person that lives in this photograph, for example. So, so that is one part. Travel is a very essential part for designers in all its manifestations. Another thing is nature. And I had quite a few of, over the years, a lot of discussions with my colleagues about many different topics. And one day we were discussing what is truth in beauty. What is ugly, what is beautiful, how can somebody decide that this is good, this is bad. And we realized that the actual truth is nature. That there is absolutely nothing ugly in nature. There is not a single flower that is ugly. There is not a single leaf that is ugly. There is not a single tree that is horribly ugly. There is not a single sunset that is ugly. And that is the truth. And this is where all our inspiration comes from. This is where all our best ideas come from, because everything is there. Yeah, nature actually did create that, or maybe God did, and that means that he's into geometry, but it's there in cabbage, in shells, in leaves, in pretty much everything. And so we really need to, well, have way more appreciation for nature and to see it as the only real truth. So that travel through your fridge, for example, I keep telling myself that it doesn't always come easily or doesn't always work that way. But we should not have anything inside our fridges that does not come from nature. And that should be the goal. And well, with our next project, for example, this island experience, that will be pretty easy to do. But surprisingly, in the modern world, we choose to separate ourselves from nature. We actually choose to, feed ourselves with stuff which nobody knows where it comes from and how it was made. And that should definitely stop. And yes, a simple moment when we take a tomato, we cut it in half, we look at it and we go, oh my God, this is perfection. This is just so beautiful. And there are so many moments in life, in every day, we cut bread for breakfast, we break an egg. All of that is absolutely stunningly beautiful, and we really need to see it. We need to collect all those moments and draw inspiration from them. Yeah, food is another issue for a designer, and I can guarantee you that now no good project can come out of one's head when one's body is stuffed with hot dogs. It just doesn't happen. And I am not against junk food. I actually love it on occasions, but then it's not a day to create. And it's a day to, work on something that's already in progress, but you cannot fire inspiration when you are full of junk. So that's one thing. And another thing is every single plate. We actually have been doing assignments with our students based on a salad. We'd give a picture of a salad and say, okay, make a bedroom out of the salad. And now, thanks God, in a lot of restaurants, the presentation is so amazing. It's so easy to find inspiration there. And if it's not amazing, I mean, we can easily make it amazing. And that is, that is part of designer's life. And at home, we started teaching kids table decoration. And it's shocking how excited they are, 5-year-old kids, about table settings. And they're having the most fun, and surprisingly, the boys are actually having more fun than girls. And they choose plates, they choose glasses, they put the flowers, they arrange the whole thing. It's, I mean, maybe it's not the most beautiful setup, but it's so touching. It's so, it's full of this excitement of creating something, which for kids is normal, and we forget it. So, table settings is a very easy way to actually work on composition, on color. Events. Events in the life of designer are so many. Normal people live from one new year to another, or from one birthday to another birthday. For a designer, every walk from a bathroom to a toilet is an event. Every breakfast, every breaking of an egg is an event. Every opening of the fridge is an event. And this conscious attitude to every single moment does change the structure of your thoughts, the structure of your brain at some point, and there is no other way that you can live. It does take some, exercise to get used to that or to get into that, but it comes quite naturally to those who are into creative professions. Clothes. I forgot the fashion part of it. And a lot of designers, famous designers on this planet, actually made their career through what they're wearing. And I see it all the time in the school. I see on the diploma presentations, which in our school are very, very serious thing, and a lot of headhunters come there. And I know that if the project is good, yeah, the person is going to get a job. But if she's dressed outrageously, she's definitely going to get a job. So I'm not saying that all the time we need to do that, but sometimes, especially on important meetings, we have to look like a product of design. And we have to scream that we are creative. And for a lot of people who are not connected to this profession at all, it's a simple thing, it's a simple trick, but it does work. And it's something that we, really need to use more. And of course, another thing, every day what we put on us, it defines how we feel, how we act, and how the day is going to go. So that is important. Okay, so now this was about how amazing life of designer is, and now we're going to talk a bit about how complicated it is and how difficult it is to be a designer. And it's mostly difficult because of the amount of responsibility that lies on our shoulders. And this flow of life that we create by drawing the lines of a plan, that responsibility is really huge. It's just impossible to even explain how big it is, because it's actually literally changing the life of people. And doing that, we'll talk about how to do it right, and we'll walk around here and see. I'll explain why I did what I did. But yeah, that part is heavy. But that's not all. There is a lot more. And we live in a world of everybody's talking about climate change and sustainability and eco-friendliness and all that. And it almost becomes, well, overused. You know, the words like sustainability. I was watching Ozark. I don't know if you've seen those series about drug dealers in somewhere on some lake district. And there are drug dealers who are growing heroin, and they're thinking how to sell it more and better. And they're like, yeah, let's say it's sustainable heroin, family-grown, farm-to-vein. And I'm like, okay, if drug dealers are joking about sustainability, then we need to find some other word, you know, and it just has to be something else. But yeah, and actually the word is weird, like sustainable. What do you mean sustainable? Like, of course, life should be sustainable, but it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that it's clean. It doesn't mean that it's, okay, zero waste and so on. So that responsibility for a designer is very material, very pragmatic. It's what we choose to build and what materials we bring, what we put on the floor, what we paint, that we paint the walls with, and so on. And that is, I mean, that's clear to everybody. I don't think I need to explain. But there is another part, and that is actually choosing particular objects. And I believe that objects have character, have energy, sometimes attitude, and they have their moods, they have their, I mean, they have their life of their own. They have their history, they have their future. And choosing the objects that we bring into this world that we are creating is extremely important. And I think that the world will finally go from this madness of overconsumption and overproduction to actually being more, well, more particular, more picky about what we buy, why we buy it, and we will create less trash that way, definitely. And because what's happening now in the world, it's outrageous. I remember I was going to Maison Objet, one of the biggest furniture fairs in the world, and there is, it's like pavilions and pavilions and pavilions of furniture. There are great designers, there are some very good concepts and good stands, and then there are pavilions of junk, of these Christmas decorations and wooden cats and God knows what. And there is so much of it, and I'm walking through those kilometers of those stands thinking that, okay, this is the biggest fair in the world. So people bring this junk here, and now from here it's going to spread exponentially around the world, and there will be more and more and more of it, and what's the point? And I walked the other day, we were looking for something to buy some headphones for my daughter. And we walk into a shop, which a new brand, actually really nice designs, very nice. They're making 2 million water bottles, 500,000 different headphones, some pillows for whatever, left foot for right foot. It's, and you stand in the middle of all that, and you're thinking, like, oh my God, like, why? Why do we need all this? We don't. We really don't need. I mean, we don't need all the junk. We don't need wooden cats. We don't need all this amount of Christmas decoration, which is, well, now is flooding the world. We actually don't need much. And if you look at the works of great interior designers, you will see that all of them use the same sofa from one house to another. The same table, the same light, lamp, sometimes even same paintings. And they use the same things. They have chosen once and for all their sofas, their whatever, carpets, or not carpets are cool actually. Carpets should be unique. And they don't bother to go through this choice over and over again because it's not necessary. It doesn't make sense. A good sofa will be a good sofa in whatever interior. And you know, Andrea, when we're working on the projects, I mean, yeah, lately we haven't even looked at any furniture because we already have everything chosen. And we know exactly where we can take this, where we can take that. And then we create something completely new out of the same things. And so this choice of objects, well, I suggest that you today choose a sofa and never think about sofas ever again in your life, and just use the same sofa, because the world that you're creating is not created by a sofa. The world is created by the emotions that you put into it. And, okay, that's, again, a longer story. But there is a way to choose that object. That super important object, and there are always, of course, a few of them in every space. And so in Eastern philosophies, the concept of holism is always described with a flower. So if you just see this daisy on the table, you don't see the daisy. But if you see the soil where this daisy was growing, the rain that was falling on this flower, the sun, the worms going through the soil, the roots of the flower, the leaves, and you see the bees that were coming to visit it, and then you see the person who cut this flower, who put it in her shop, another person bought it, probably you put it on the table, it's in a vase, that's a different story, why the vase is there, but okay, so. And then this flower one day is going to die and it will go into the garbage. So talking about the holistic approach to choosing objects in the interior, I just want to give, it's going to be a long example, but it's definitely worth going into it. So imagine a person in Europe chooses a sofa for his apartment. And that sofa, as normally the furniture which is sold in Europe is being assembled somewhere else. Like parts of it are made in different countries. And so that sofa, what he sees is a picture in a catalog or a sample in a showroom. But what he actually is buying is an object which is being created just for that person. So let's say that the wooden legs of the sofa are carved, let's say in Bali or somewhere in Indonesia, in a small village where the people, all they're doing are carving those wooden legs. And there is a guy who is carving those legs. He's coming back home. His son is running to him and saying, "Dad, what have you done today?" And Dad says, "Well, I have carved some beautiful legs today." So the legs are ready. The fabric for that sofa was ordered from, let's say, Indian silk. And normally the Indian silk would be produced on a factory where women are working. So all those beautiful Indian women in the colorful saris are making this, silk. What color is it? Let's say it's lime-colored. Lime-colored silk. They're singing a song maybe about some unhappy love. They all have troubles of their own. They're talking about their kids. Somebody is sick. So they're discussing this whole thing when that silk is being woven. So all their stories, all their energies are going into that piece of fabric. The frame of the sofa and this whatever upholstery is being made in Italy. Smells of... you know what it smells of in Italy, garlic and tomatoes. And the people are very loud, but quite happy, lots of jokes. So the energy is positive and like very vivid, very active. And then the fabric arrives, the legs arrive, they're all getting together. The sofa is pretty much there. Well, let's say the sofa is finished. And then the sofa from Italy is being shipped to, let's say, Holland. And the sofa is being packed on a crate, then covered with plastic, so nothing more to see. There is no airflow, and the sofa is moved on a truck. There's a lot of swearing going around, because what people do when they put things on a truck, they swear. So the energy is completely different. There is fuck, 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 and then the sofa moves, and she's, let's say she's being shipped on a container. On a sea container. There is a storm, there are waves, things are falling down, the sofa is completely lost, what's going on, it's dark, nobody's talking, and yeah, the sofa is not in a good space, not in a good place at the moment. Then it's again more swearing, completely different language, but the energy is the same, again truck. And then the sofa arrives to the house where the person ordered her, and let's say the sofa, and let's say the apartment is on the 5th floor, no elevator, which in Holland is absolutely normal, and oh my God, yeah, carrying a suitcase is a problem, not to mention a sofa. So imagine that people who are carrying the sofa, they break something on the way, they sway in Dutch, and then finally the sofa is in that newly renovated apartment. The plastic is taken off, all the packaging is taken off. And imagine if that person who ordered that sofa says, oh no, the fabric is wrong color. It should have been sky blue. And imagine how the sofa feels if it went through all this, and she has to go back somewhere out of this happy place where she was hoping to stay for the rest of her life. That's not a happy sofa. So whoever buys her buys a sad puppy, a rescue, and it can end well or maybe not. But imagine that the person did order lime green silk, and everything is good, and the sofa stays there, and 20 years later, the grandchildren of this person are telling stories to their kids that, you know, our grandfather had this amazing sofa with the lime-colored silk, and it was so old, and it was so, shabby in places, but we heard the best fairy tales on that sofa and had the best moments in our life, and we loved our grandfather so much. That's how we choose every single object. And that's how we should see every single choice of everything we bring into our home. And even go further. What happens to that sofa when everybody's dead? How will it rot? What will it leave? Will it actually become a flower at some point, which again will stand on your table in a vase, blah, blah, blah. It's endless, of course, but this is the attitude, that's the right attitude to choose objects. Not by price, not by trend, not by brand name, not by, oh, I like that. That's not what we do. So conscious attitude to every single choice, no matter how small it is really important. And of course, well, talking about responsibility, so that will be the last part of it. So we are responsible for the flow of life in that place we create. We're responsible for the choice of materials that we bring into this place. We are responsible for every single object, and we're also responsible for the impact that place is going to have on the world around it. And a simple example, so many houses in Bali are built with complete disregard to what people are going to see. So people turn inside into their little swimming pool and the garden around it, and what's happening with the facade, which is facing the street. Honestly, for me, every time I pass a house like that, I hear "fuck you." It's whoever was building it just tells me that straight to my face every single time I pass the house, because they really don't give a damn about what we, the passerbys, or everybody who lives around, what we see or feel. And that's, well, I think people should be, well, you know, there should be some penalties, there should be some fines for that, and there should be some aesthetical police. I'm against any aggression or, you know, I'm a pirate in my soul, but in this, I mean, seriously, like it's, it does get too much. But not just that, not the aesthetical impact. Like every space we create, it will produce sound. Like, for example, villa next door has a huge fan in the kitchen, and when they put it on, I can't function, I can't think. And they would not move their kitchen. But if the person who was planning the layout of this whole area, they wouldn't put the kitchen just next to somebody's bedroom. And that's a new addition to their wonderful, wonderful layout. And every space we create, besides the sound, will the energy that we consume, all the electromagnetic waves and all that. So we are taking it, we are sending it, and we can be a good neighbor or a horrible neighbor. And the impact of that world that we are creating should be maximally positive. That's pretty much, yeah, what we need to know. But it is a very complicated story. And now with all the zero waste system that are actually available, the amount of garbage that we are producing, that this world is producing, has to be cut down. And in general, the impact on the world has to be as good as we can make it.